opening prayers, Sahana Bhavatu, and the one to Sri Shankarananda. Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namah Shri Shankarananda Guru Padambu Janmane Savilasa Mahamoha Graha Grasaika Karmane. So we are trying to learn the signs of obtaining joy. We obtain joy without knowing the signs of it, and it happens automatically. It just from time to time I'm happy, and from some time I'm not happy, and I am not sure to a certain degree why I become happy or unhappy. And this is really characterized by the word mood, which is an interesting thing, that the mood is very unpredictable. And the children also know it. If they have to ask their parents for something special, like an iPhone or something like this, some major, they wait for their parents to be in a good mood. And if the parents are not in a good mood, they're very clever. They won't ask for it. And really, the mood is a very interesting thing because you have no predictability. Anyway, just to broaden it, we don't really know the signs of happiness. Thinking there isn't one. This is the best we can do. But there is. Our Shastra says there is a science for happiness, and if you care to study it and to follow the instructions of it, then you will first of all find a certain amount of confirmation. You may not become totally happy yet, but you will find confirmation that it is happening. It is actually going on. It is a little bit like, when you're traveling on a journey and you don't know the final destination, but according to the instructions, it says that 20 minutes after you start your car and you head towards Los Angeles, you will pass such and such town. And so indeed, if you imagine you are not familiar with this whole area, so you're a little bit concerned. Am I doing the right thing? Going on a freeway is not a problem, but sometimes you have to make a lot of left and right turns in smaller cities, and so you're not sure whether you're following the right thing. But if you have some instructions, which says 20 minutes later you will see such and such sign, and you see the sign. You haven't reached the destination yet, but you are actually much more calmer. Yes, I'm going in the right direction. This topic will come a little bit later on also when we study the one of the shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita. Today we're going to do a lot of shlokas from Bhagavad Gita, as I mentioned last time. Anyway, let's revise where we are. So what we saw so far in a summary form is that if we care to examine the signs of joy, the signs of Ananda, then what we will find is that there are three indications of Ananda that we should be able to see and corroborate from our experience. So the three things that we should be looking for is what the Shruti says, what the doctor says, what the authoritative specialist says about the disease. Secondly, is it reasonable? And the third one is, does it match my experience? And so if you tick off all three of them, what you will find is that you will see your Ananda expressed in the following three segments. One of them is, and this is all of them by all of us, regardless of who we are. This is common to all humankind, whether you're born in India or Africa or US or Germany or anywhere. Doesn't matter. Every human being. So the first one is a very close touch to Brahmananda, the real source of Ananda, which is Brahmananda. And very close touch meaning, as we saw, I think in the example last week, I believe I gave it to this class, it is like you are touching the metallic vessel that has a cold water. Let's say even ice water. And you're not touching the water, but you're touching something which is very close to the ice water, which is the metal. Very similarly to this is the case that in the deep sleep state, for a short amount of time, you are actually almost touching Brahmananda. You're not really directly touching Brahmananda. That there's no way you can do that. You can only be Brahmananda. You cannot touch Brahmananda. But you can touch as though your own core, very close to it. And what is the metallic object that prevents you from touching it? It is a sense of ignorance. It's like a veil, like a metallic object, which is close to it. It doesn't prevent you from but from experiencing Brahmananda, but it is close to it. So anyway, the first segment we saw is that everyone is given an opportunity to be very close to Brahmananda. Everyone. And the amazing part is it doesn't matter what you are during the day, whether you're a good person or a bad person, whether you're well or you are sick, doesn't matter. Ishvara has provided you with a wonderful, close touch to Brahmananda. This is number one. Then, as we observe the signs of Ananda, we find that there is a second segment, which is called Vasanananda. And Vasanananda means the leftover memory. And the leftover memory is actually on both sides of Brahmananda, even before you reach Brahmananda. So this is from the previous experience. When you say leftover means that it hasn't even started yet, but it means that it's from the previous experience. And the one that you experience immediately after getting up. So, and what is characteristic about Vasanananda is that there is no particular cause for this joy except the anticipation of Brahmananda or the memory of Brahmananda that you had during the night. So for a short amount of time, you are just joyful when your ahankara has not yet arisen. And with the ahankara comes the worry, the responsibility of the day, and all of those kinds of things. And we will talk about that in a minute. But until that ahankara rises up, there is a Vasanananda. And so really speaking, you have this sphere of Brahmananda, and on both sides of it, there is Vasanananda. And Swami Vidyaranya says that it is not just in the periphery of the Brahmananda, But even during the day sometimes, you are just joyful without any cause. That means that nothing is really bothering you. You don't have Brahmananda yet, but you have some Vasanananda during the day. So this is the second category. First one is Brahmananda, closeness. The second one is Vasanananda. And the third one can be either called Vishayananda or Pratibimbananda. Both words are used. And what that is the release of Ananda when a desire is fulfilled. There's a lot of discussion of this in the 12th chapter. Hopefully we'll study that. I'm actually reviewing that these days about the Vishayananda and how it happens. But basically what happens is that when you want something, it obstructs your Ananda. Your Bahirmukhaha, you're looking outside. And when that object has been hopefully successfully achieved, and a simple one is like an ice cream, or quenching your thirst, and so on, then you find that having been done, your mind enjoys your own self. And the funny part is that you think that it was the ice cream that did it. What it did was that your kamana, your desire, has been eliminated. And so this is what is also called Pratibimbananda or Vishayananda. And so those are the three segments that we had already talked about. So far, a revision. Now, all three in varying forms for an individual is called Nityananda. So Nityananda now, which we also talked about very briefly in the last class, and we will now continue from this point on. Nityananda can be translated as personal joy. So the sum total of all experiences, the variations of that, common Brahmananda, some Vasanananda, like for example, it's not necessary that you have necessarily Vasanananda before you go to sleep. You could be very worried about something. And this is the reason we cannot go to sleep sometimes. Or the moment you get up and you remember something, your Vasanananda doesn't last. So there are variations amongst people, but we're looking at the general thing. The general thing is that the Nityananda is a combination of Brahmananda, Vasanananda, Vishayananda, and it keeps varying, but it depends upon an individual. How happy a one is, we don't know. Just because a person is a big shot doesn't mean that the person is happy. And just because the person is not a big shot, it doesn't mean that the person is not happy. I remember even before I met Swami Chinmayananji, this when I was working in India with IBM. I was with IBM for about 7 years in San Jose. And then I was recruited to go to India, and I spent like a year there. And I had some health problems, and IBM also was not doing well. And so I came back in 1971, 72. And then I never went back after that. Then I settled here. But I remember when I was in New Delhi, and I was a big shot. I was given a car, and I was a sales manager, and all of that at a very young age. And I was worried about the new job. How am I going to do well? What do the people think about me? How will I perform? And I was sitting in the back seat, and you know what I saw was that these bicycles with two people, one person riding the bike and the other one sitting in the back, were all also going sometimes in a stop sign. And I found that these guys were singing songs, happy, slapping each other. And I said, oh my goodness, what is something wrong with this picture? I think I'm a big shot, I'm making a lot of money, and I've been given this, at that time, the only Hindustan car, and I had a driver, and I was all in tie and white shirt and all of that. And here's these guys who are, laborers or peons or something, not very well dressed, riding a bicycle, and they seem to be happier. So I tell you, those wheels of thinking started. There is something going on here in this life. And then when, of course, I started to learn Vedanta, it started to make more sense. And one of the things the Vedanta says is that you cannot tell if a person is happy or not. And just by the outward things, it doesn't mean anything. Sometimes people actually appear very happy. They smile a lot to you and so on. Deep down below, their heart is hurting. Could be. And there's a very famous story, as you know. I think we've done that before. So this was in Chandogya Upanishad, where Narada approaches Sanat Kumara. And Narada was a very, very big scholar. He was a Renaissance man. And the story is that he was accepted both in Swargaloka as well as in Manushya-loka. You can go back and forth. And he knew all of the subjects and he was an absolute expert. And he approached Sanat Kumara and said, "Sir, I'm not a very happy person." And Sanat Kumara, of course, was a Jnani. And he was one of the sons of Brahmaji. This is how the story goes. And so he was not as though he was oblivious, but he kind of pretended he didn't know. And said, "Narada, I'm shocked. You, out of all the people, is not happy? My goodness, you are so accomplished. In fact, tell me about all the things that you know." So Narada gives him a long list. Oh my God, music, medicine, engineering, this, everything he knew. Not happy. Anyway, so this is this is what is called Nityananda. Everyone has a personal sense of happiness. Okay, so this is introduction. I mean, this is a revision up to the last point. Now we take some new steps, and hopefully we will go from verse number 98 through hopefully 108. And I'm going to do a verse by verse. I'm going to switch over to the verse by verse because this is an important segment which also directly points to the Bhagavad Gita's 6th chapter. So I'll pass that on. By the way, just to let you know, we will have another class next week, which will be our last class. And we will also do an extended meditation. And so we don't have to finish everything today, but there's quite a bit of things to be done, and so it would still be in a very summary fashion. I won't be able to go into all the details. So now we will have 2 classes, including today. So verse number 98 says that if you analyze the Nityananda, which is, as I said, a personal Ananda that includes all the other ones that we talked about, Nityananda, you can draw some conclusions about Nityananda. And the main conclusion you can draw is that the more a sense of ahamkara, the less happy is the Nityananda. And conversely, if you diminish the importance of the I thought, the more Nityananda increases. And so, ahankara, of course, is a complex thing. It doesn't mean ego, just ego. It just means, really speaking, and we will discuss this in more detail some in other contexts, is that you are deeply committed and identified with yourself as a jiva. You don't think about anything else. The fact of the matter is that you need to understand the mahima, the glory of the Paramatma in you, but you don't. Either you don't know about it, or even if you don't know about it, it doesn't seem to make much difference. It's too distant and too vague in your mind. Your whole idea is that of me, the ahankara. I'm worried about myself. How am I doing? Am I making progress? What is happening to me? My responsibilities, my family, my job. This whole package is called ahamkara. Your obsession, I think it's a good word, your obsession with yourself as a limited person could be called an ahankara. And the more you think about it, the less is your happiness, because the limits of dukkha for a jiva is amazing. It's just the problems we can have, bodily problems, mental problems, society problems, all kinds of things. It's just incredible. And so it is not a happy situation. And you can make it worse by being just focused on that and not really looking at anything else. Anyway, going back to the general principle that the ahankara reduction increases your Nityananda. And here Swami Maheshananji says a very beautiful point, that really it should be looked upon as, because the ahankara is also jnana rupa. Jnana rupa means that it is a conscious thought. It is not a table or a thing that obstructs your Nityananda. It is a veil. Now, I think the best way to look upon that is that it is like a cloud which is obstructing the sunlight. And the thicker the cloud, the darker the cloud, the more the sunlight is obstructed. And I take this cue from Swami Maheshananji, that the cloud is not a solid object. You cannot say, can you please give me 3 pounds of cloud? If you're flying in a plane and you're going right through the cloud, there is no substance. It is really just an akasha, but with some air. So the ahankara also is just an obstruction. It's just thoughts. But you can see the functioning of ahankara, because, like for instance, if you are very angry, that means the cloud is extremely dark. You don't have any ananda, you have anger towards either yourself or to others. And then on the other hand, if you are calm and collected and you are in harmony with the world, then there is an obstruction, because it's not as though you have reached Brahmananda yet, but the cloud is less dark. So anyway, so now we can say that Nityananda and Ahankara are diametrically opposite. If one is more, the other one will be less. Okay, now we are going to introduce a new topic. Okay, so this is verse number 98. And this topic is an important one which starts with verse number 99. And at this point in time, it transitions into Bhagavad Gita. So this is a topic on which the title of the whole 11th chapter is based on. It is called Yogananda. A new word. So we've had Brahmananda, Vasanananda, we said Vishayananda, we said Pratibimbananda, we said Nijananda, and now we have a new word called Yogananda. What is Yogananda? Yogananda is to take control of Nijananda. Because up to now, Nityananda was just a collection given to a personal happiness, and you can make a assessment of what it is. It changes also, but basically you can say that person is a happy person, that person is not a happy person, more Nityananda, less Nityananda, all those kinds of things. But now the topic, and this is from verse number 99 through 134. So more than the third of the whole chapter. In fact, the name of the chapter is Yogananda in Brahmananda. That is the name of the chapter, Yogananda. What is Yogananda? Yogananda is the science of increasing your Nijananda. Instead of just saying, well, this is the way God has made me and there's nothing I can do and I can do a few things but nothing much. No. You can do a lot. And in fact, you can take Nijananda all the way up to Brahmananda with your effort. Really? Yes. What is their effort? This is the topic, and we won't be able to finish it, obviously. We may have to go through another class sometime in the future. Very beautifully done, very detailed one. This combination of Swami Vidyaranya and Swami Maheshananda, as I've said before, is just an amazing one. The Swami Maheshananda brings out the subtleties of Vidyaranya's thoughts and how he expresses it, and to give us guidance is divine, just beautiful. And so this is the topic for it. So here, so let's start on it. Let's go as far as possible. This actually finishes up with the Bhagavad Gita on verse 99 through verse 108 in the Panchadashi, and the verses taken from the Bhagavad Gita are from chapter 6, verse number 20 to 28, and it's almost like a direct quotation of the Gita, as we will see, but not yet. Number 99 sets the stage for it by calling it Yogananda. And so let's look into that. This is a very interesting new topic. So what it says is that Ishvara has given you a taste of Brahmananda without your doing anything at night time. All you have to be is a human being. And you automatically are given a close touch to the Brahmananda at night time. And not during the day or during the dream. Both of them are sukha dukhi, sukhi dukhi. Your dreams can be just as bad, and your jagrata avasya, your waking state, can be bad, and you have nowhere close to Brahmananda during the day. So the question is, can I come close to Brahmananda in these two states of my experience? And the answer is yes. How? To see that, now let us analyze the various factors. Okay? One is that in the deep sleep, the affect goes back into the cause. So the cause is ignorance, and the effect, which used to be duality and vikshepa and so on, is now back into it. It has dissolved into it. We saw this example of ghee, that instead of being a solid object, it just dissolves into ajnanam. So that's the one phenomena. But in any case, what it means is that your mind becomes more subtle. Because the subtlety means that it's like the thickness of the cloud becomes less automatically, given by Ishvara. The second point is that this sukshmata, this is called sukshmata, means the subtlety of the mind can be developed during the waking state also. How? So this is given in what is called chitta nirodha. And this is a big topic in Patanjali. Patanjali actually is an expert in doing this. Some of the objectives are slightly different. It just means anyway, let's not get into that. But the methodology of the Ashtanga Yoga are very appropriate here. So chittavitti nirodhaha. Nirodhaha is making your mind more subtle. What does it mean by making the mind more subtle? It's so now one other thing before I go to the what is the subtlety mean. So look at this. In one case, you become happy when you are asleep. And when you are not asleep, your ahankara rises up and obstructs your happiness. So it's very obvious that if we can figure out a way to reduce the ahankara, but not go to sleep. You see, this is important. I mean, sometimes, you're worried and you're doing this, that, or the other, and you don't know what else to do, but you just go to sleep. You take a nap. There it is not what you did, it is what Ishvara did. But with the chitta vritti nirodhaha, it is what you do. You are the one that makes the mind subtle, and we will go into what the subtlety means in a minute. But when you make the mind subtle, your ahankara is still there, but it is so subtle that it mimics the one in sleep. And one interesting aspect of the ahankara still there is, if your ahankara is not there, your body will slump. That happens to me a lot. I am actually in the afternoon, I don't actually lie down to take a nap. Invariably, if I'm tired, my wife will pass by and she was about to say something, and what she will say is, and I can feel it myself, I have no control over my body. At least I'm still sitting up. And yes, most of the time I'm sitting in a chair, so I may be just slumped. That means my ahankara is not supporting my body, because nobody wants to be like this. And so if as soon as I wake up I say, oops, what's happening to me? And I say, aha, that was a nap. So what that means is that the ahankara disappears in sleep, but it is present in samadhi. Really what we are aspiring for is nirvikalpa samadhi. In the nirvikalpa samadhi, your body is still erect. Why? Because the ahankara is still there in a very subtle state. Now, it's not worried about things, and so this is what the lessons all say. But it just says, I am, I am. And so why it stays open means that my body is not slumping. So in verse number 99 is this opening, that yes, you can go down the path of making your mind very subtle and absorbed within yourself, and yet you are not asleep. This is what we should aspire to, and this is the what that mimics the Brahmananda, getting close to Brahmananda. This is still only getting close to Brahmananda. Really what you need to do is to involve jnanam. This is really at this point in time, this is still just dhyanam. Dhyanam means a preparation for nididhyasanam. But the preparation itself is very pleasant. Why? Because all the chitta vrittis are gone. And you are just quietly sitting there enjoying your own state. Okay? Alright, so this is the opening verse that sets the stage of chitta vritti nirodha, which is nothing but the passage to nirvikalpa samadhi. So now from verse number 100 onwards, Vidyaranya ji yields to Bhagavad Gita. So verse number 100, verse number 100 is the same as, no, sorry, just a second. No. Verse number 100 simply defines everything, that this is Yogananda. Samadhi, the process of samadhi is Yogananda. Why? As we said before, it is a conscious, I don't want to say the word manipulation, but it's a conscious massaging of your Nijananda, which we earlier called as Yogananda. So verse number 100 simply says that. Verse number 101 is the exact copy of verse numbers Gita chapter 6 verse number 25. So now in the short time remaining, 8:38, we will try to do as much of the Gita as possible, and then whatever is left we will do next time. So in verse number 101, which is the Gita verse says, Shanai Shanaihi Uparamet Buddhya Dhriti Grihitaya Atma Samstham Manah Kritva Na Kinchitapi Chintayet. So, the first step is Uparati. Uparati means just making your mind very quiet and very absorbed. My teaching is from Swami Dayanandji, and he never used to use the word concentrate. Never. Because concentrate requires there's some tension. And it's very funny. I'm hate to bring up a point against somebody else, but if you look at Swami Tattvavedananda and his meditations, if you ever go back to, because Swami Tattvavedananda did not grow up with Swami Dayananda. He really was an independent person. He spent some time with Swami Dayananda. But my thinking is all Swami Dayananda's. So if you look at Swami Tattvananda's meditation, you will see at the end of the meditation, he will say, relax. And I find that very funny. Because what that means is, up to now you were not relaxed. And now after the meditation you should relax. To me that doesn't hit my mind. And so, really speaking, meditation itself is the process of relaxation. Then you can say, okay, now get up and so on and so forth. So anyway, Swami Dayanandji would never use the word concentration. I think the best way to do that is to say quiet absorption. So just like, for example, if you are reading a very interesting book, you are really not concentrating. Concentrating will be if you are playing a TV game and you have to think about an answer. There it's not an absorption, it's concentration. You have to think about, let's see, which word is it? Like Jeopardy. But if you're reading a book, you're not concentrating, you're absorbed. Your mind is so absorbed in it. If your mother is, if the boy's mother, girl's mother is saying, hey, the food is getting cold, and you're not listening. That is the meaning of really Chittavritti Nirodha. Now, another interesting thing here, which verse was it in? See, I think this is in the next verse. That's a very important thing I want to bring up, but when I bring it up, I'm not sure. No, that comes in verse number 104. So that comes in later on. Never mind. So I'll come to it later on. Even today, I won't let it go until I finish it. So the first step in verse number 26 is, this is an important thing to see, is uparati, absorption. Now, Swami Maheshananji makes some excellent point about Shanai Shanaihi. Shanai Shanaihi means slowly. Slowly. What does it mean slowly? What do you mean by not fast? Why slowly? His point is so beautiful. I really appreciate that. He says, do not be worried about where you are. How come you're not making progress? How far more do I have to go? These kinds of things are an obstruction. Why are they an obstruction? Because the very seed of these questions come from your kartritvam. Your ego comes up. How come I've been doing this for a long time? How come I'm not making any progress? And there are 2 points to be talked about this, okay? Relevant to this. One was the example given by Swami Dayananda. Beautiful example. He used to say, and children actually have to be taught this. So sometimes the parents teach the children to plant a new plant, either from seeds or a new plant, either one. And the child is so excited that the next day it wants to see how come it hasn't come up yet. And he wants to dig it up. And Swami Dayananda used to say, please, 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 do not let the plant grow on its own. You've done everything you could. You've watered it, you put the seed exactly ½ inch below the surface, whatever needs to be done. And now let it be. Don't keep on interrupting it. And Swami Dayananda used to have another beautiful example, which is that there is a new rose flower that is now starting to open up. And you're anxious. And so you're saying, I think I can open it a little bit with the hand. You'll spoil the natural beauty. By hastening it up, you're going to spoil the natural beauty. And so this was a beautiful point. Both the acharyas have said the same thing. Shanai Shanai means let it be. Don't keep on asking yourself how long is it going to be. The second point I wanted to make relevant to that was given by Swami Maheshananji. Very beautiful point. He said that if you're going in a car, long distance, 3 hours, 4 hours somewhere, even from here to Sacramento, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and if you have children that don't know how far it is, they will ask their parents, are we there yet? We've been sitting here for a long time. Nowadays, of course, the parents all have these videos. My daughter-in-law, for example, she keeps a stack of videos for the children. Now, of course, her daughters are now grown up. But when they were younger, we never had that problem. I mean, we didn't have that solution. When we had kids, they used to bother us. How far do we have to go? If you know exactly how far it is to go, you will not be worried. But if you don't know how far it is to go, you get very worried. So Swami Maheshananji says, listen, do not be like children and be worried. How come I'm not making progress? How far do I have to go? It will come when it comes. The flower will open when it opens. And so this is the point, is that Shanai Shanaihi Uparamet Buddhya Dhriti Grihitaya Atma Samstham Manakritva Na Kinchit Api Chintayet. And so it says, really speaking, there's a lot behind all this. There's a lot to be said. This is some very important things here. And here Swami Maheshananji says, listen, your job is to ascertain very certainly, very clearly, the Shravanam and Mananam given by the teacher. That you are Parama Ananda, your nature is Parama Ananda, and you are the very nature of beingness. You don't change. You are the Sat, you are the Chit, you are the Ananda. This needs to be ascertained. Now, if it hasn't been ascertained, you should not even be doing samadhi. You should be going back to the teacher and saying, I don't get it. How can I be Satchidananda? I don't understand what Satchidananda means. I don't understand that how come my nature is Ananda. Can you please explain it to me one more time? That dialogue has to go on between the teacher and the student. And then your own mananam has to take place. So that is what you need to do. But once having done so, do not keep asking, when is it going to really hit me? It will hit you when it will hit you. You will understand it. You just do not worry about it. Because it is like, if you wanted to go in a certain direction, your job is to set the car on the freeway at a set point, and then you don't worry about anything. That's what your job is. This is the Shravam and Mananam. And the flower will open when it opens. So here, Sri Krishna says, Na kinchit abhi chintayet. Don't think about other things. Don't get worried about this, that, or the other. You bring to your mind the clarity of the teaching, and whether you feel that or not is not up to you. That is the blessing of Ishvara. And that means that certain coverages have to go away. The darkness of the clouds has to go away. But, it's just like you don't doubt that there is sunlight. You know that the sunlight is not very clear. But you never doubt that there is sun. In fact, you see the clouds because of the sun, as we have done it in some other classes. Very beautiful example. That even the doubts that you have are due to your consciousness. Even the fact that you are unhappy is set up by consciousness whose nature is happiness. The sunlight is the one which is causing the cloud to be seen. And it's obstructing itself. Anyway, at this point we're going to visit in different places. The very opening stanzas of Purusha Suktam, Sahasra Shirsha Purusha, is all pointing out to this thing, as we will see when we start that class. And so your job really is not to worry, but be secure in the clarity of what was taught. If the clarity is not there, please go back to the class. And if you don't think you can get it, then please don't study. Just lead a normal life. But if you have embarked on a deeper understanding, and so this you should do in the class itself. And so this is a very important point actually, because in tomorrow's talk that I'm going to give on the Shishyas of Shankara, there are two schools of thought, the Vivarna school and the Vivarna school and what is the other one? I don't use it very much, so it doesn't come to my mind. Anyway, so there are two schools, and these two schools are the ones who are fighting on this point. What point they're fighting on? Because one says that meditation gives you the happiness, The other one says that it is the Shravanam and Mananam that gives you the happiness, and the meditation is simply a way to uncover the Shravanam and Mananam. Anyway, we'll discuss that in tomorrow's class. 8:53. So here, I think I promised you on verse number 104, there is a word called Niruddha. So I'm going to go straight to that and then perhaps complete some of the other points. And so this point about Niruddha, so this comes in Gita verse number 20 of the 6th chapter. Yatra uparamate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya yatra chaivatmanatmanam pashyan atmani tushyati. Pashyan natmani tushyati. Anyway, so the meaning of this verse is that generally speaking, I'll just give you the general meaning and not the detailed one, that when your mind becomes subtle enough and begins to reflect your own happiness as like a clear mirror, so Atmani Eva, you become self-aware of your own happiness, which you are not at this point. Not you, but the people who are just starting out are not happy because they don't see their own reflection very clearly. Anyway, the point, this is the general meaning of the verse. The word that I wanted to focus in on before the end of the class is Niruddham. And Swami Maheshananji has given a very beautiful example of that. I really appreciated that. So, Ruddham means one has been stopped. So the headlong going away after things, the vikshepa, the worrying about things, looking at itself as a duality and so on, that has been stopped. You are now more absorbed in yourself. So that's the meaning of Niruddham. So now the word Niruddham comes from the etymologically it comes from Rudh, means to stop, to arrest. So normally the first one is Ruddham. And Sri Krishna uses the word Niruddham, Nishchayena Ruddham. What is the difference between Ruddham and Nishchayena Ruddham? It is very much like Ruddham is where your ego is still involved. I am stopping it. I am happy that I am absorbing my mind. So your sense of your participation in the stopping process is very much there. And it's something like, when you are learning to swim. When you are learning to swim, you are not swimming effortlessly yet. You're effortfully swimming. Would be called Niruddham. But there comes a point, if you do it often enough and well enough, your swimming becomes automatic without your doing it. And I think this example is even more by bicycling. Bicycling is, I think, a more appropriate example. We all remember when we first started to ride a two-wheeler, how difficult it seemed to be, and how much effort and concentration required, and holding by our parents' hands and so on, and fear, and the fact that I'm doing it now, I think, no, I'm going to fall down. No, I think I can be okay. This is called riddham. And in the beginning, the meditations, etc., will be like that, according to the acharyas. But if you keep doing it, there comes a point where you are no longer involved in, you're not even aware of the fact, it happens automatically. And in fact, it could be done where in the bicycling you're pedaling, but after a while you have such speed that you can even stop pedaling and the bicycle goes by itself. So similarly here also, the process of nirvikalpa samadhi is that in the beginning, yatra uparamate, I'm just going back to the Bhagavad Gita, yatra uparamate chittam niruddham yoga sevaya. Beautiful words by Sri Krishna. Yoga sevaya means that you have faithfully followed the yoga, the process of yoga. Shanai shanaihi uparamet. You're not getting your ego involved. When is it going to do it? You just allow the results to happen by itself. You're clear about what the end result is. You have now set the motor in motion. Now, yes, it may require some stroking it from time to time, but that stroking, which is called ruddham, will become niruddham after a while. And that is the subtlety of the thought which takes you closer to Brahmananda without going to sleep. Anyway, I'm running out of time. I didn't finish all the way up to 108, so we will have to postpone it to next week. And we won't be able to go to the verses up to 134, which I knew we were not going to. But there are a couple of points from the ending of the chapter which I would like to emphasize. So next week we will hopefully finish the whole course by doing 3 things. Possibly we might do meditation, although I may run out of time. So I will finish this train of thought up to verse number 108, which is the mimicking of the verses in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I'll finish that. Then I will bring out a couple of points that are important in the very end of the chapter. And those are also involved in the major things that we need to do in our life in order to gain Brahmananda while we are awake. We can gain Brahmananda while we are asleep all the time, but the objective is to have the Brahmananda while we are awake. And so what are the 2 important things that Vidyaranya ji has pointed out, along with all the Shastric confirmation, and that I will do next week. And if we have time, then we will do meditation also, and that will be the last class of this session. So I'll see you then. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Okay, let me see any questions. All right, so let us see. Verses in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. I'll finish. So greetings from many of you, but I'm looking for any questions. I don't see any. Thank you all. I'll wait for a while to see if something pops up in your mind, and I'll try to answer it. But I'm happy you all joined, all of you. And we will wind up this short session on the science of joy, 7 or 8 classes. And then the following week we will start Purusha Suktam. So with that, if there is no other questions, I will say goodbye to you. Okay? Namaste.